Hello and welcome to School Health Presents, working with our exceptional individuals during the COVID-19 pandemic. This video is going to focus on what we can be doing at home to continue to encourage social skills development, along with coming to a better understanding of our own emotions and how things are feeling. First and foremost, as we work through some of these things, we'll note that obviously the therapists with whom we might be working aren't easily accessible for us to be here in the same room with them. So a couple of things that you want to be aware of. I recognize therapists that some of you prefer not to use technology. However, technology like what we're doing here, using a direct connection, or technology like a cell phone, using things like Skype or Zoom or FaceTime, any of those actually will work well, because what we begin doing within that therapeutic session is moving away from the idea of strict video modeling to real-time social interactive learning and engagement via video. A significant difference. We're not saying make the video and then have the students react to the video, because there's no reaction going on there. What we're saying instead is get on that FaceTime call, get on that video conference call and talk to the student, talk with them. Because what we're doing is we're actually using a couple of different things psychologically for the benefit of that child. Number one, psychologically, we are working with them again on their social and emotional development as we go into things. But number two, and more importantly, we're also teaching them social skills about how to interact when you're in that type of a discussion. Remember, we live in their world, and their world is quickly changing. And so we are going to see more of the video conferencing side of things coming into play later on. Some of us still weren't ready for these as we came along. We were used to party lines and phones that only had a cord that went so far. We've come a long way. So we can continue to prepare our students by giving them activities that actually will work in a couple of different ways. The next question some of my therapists have asked is, wait a minute, what happens if the parent or guardian of that individual doesn't easily have access to things like a cell phone, to things like the internet? What I've seen some school districts do, and this is going to require a little bit of work, but what I've seen some of them do is set up times where that therapist can actually go and be outside of the front door. Have that glass in type of screen door where individuals can talk through the glass at the individual with whom they're working. So you want to get a sense that this can be done in a number of different ways where we don't have to have that immediate direct face-to-face connection. What are some of the other things we can be using at home for some of the tools? There's all kinds of different games and different apps that can be used. I prefer to use a lot of handheld or tactile-based things as we go through. So some of the things to consider are those games that you might already have. Use flashcards where you've got individuals describing what different faces look like. Even things like your sensory stones that are more emotion-based stones. Those are things that can work. And if you're at home and you can't get something like that, make them yourself. Go out in the yard, pick up some stones, and just using some simple paints or nail polish, draw some faces on and discuss what those feelings are, what those emotions are. There are some other things that are out there too. I love using different things like this that again are soft, are flexible, can be used for a multitude of reasons aside from communicating different types of emotions and feelings. They can also be used as fidgets as we're going through, and we're not worried about an individual throwing them or becoming anxious with them in their hand. Some of the games that I like to recommend that individuals play the games that that individual first and foremost is comfortable with. So what do I mean by that? Something like Simon Says is actually a great game. Simon Says Smile. Simon Says, and load it up on the Simon Says things. And when you're doing that, also give some explanations as to why Simon Says Smile. Someone told a joke. Simon Says Smile, and have the individual smile. Those are the types of things that our learning lessons are still operating within what we can do in a home environment, yet at the same time are allowing us to develop those individuals even further. Another fun game, if you haven't picked it up yet, I like Double Up. Double Up is basically a matching game that has you actually work to identify things, but they're hygiene based and leisure activity based. Why I like Double Up in this particular type of a setting is the fact that on the hygiene side of things, we are talking about washing our hands, we're talking about brushing our teeth, we're talking about cleaning up. And so those are things that we can tie into an overall process of what we need to be doing on a very regular basis. When we talk about the leisure activities, we can then talk about and transition into some of the activities we might be doing at home. I recognize that if we've got individuals who perhaps have some physical limitations, they're not necessarily going to be getting up and moving throughout the house. However, there are still some therapies and therapeutic exercises we may be doing. So consult with your OTs and PTs. See what they will normally be doing in the construct of any class and kind of work through that as we come along. Some other games. This is a cute one. And again, whether you have this set or you make some on your own, emotionos. These are basically dominoes, but they're based on emotions. Talk through the emotions. What do the various faces mean? What I am seeing is all too often we get into specific mindsets that become myopic. We either A, are of the video modeling group and we have to have always a video in that, or we're B, no, we have to do things that are symbolic. How about blending all aspects? How about working with emotions where we're talking about this is how I am when I'm happy. These are things that make me happy. Some very simple things that, again, any parent or guardian can actually work through. And therapists, as you're working through that too, recognize that you can be using these for any child as we go through. So emotionos, another cute idea that can then lead to dominoes. And with dominoes, guess what you can be doing? You can also be teaching math. You can be teaching sorting skills. You can be teaching any number of different skills as this comes along. Another cool idea are photo conversation cards, where these are actually cards that allow you to start an actual conversation going on. Well, this isn't the only place that you can actually get cards like that. Go into magazines you might have lying around the house. Find pictures on the internet that you might have. You don't have to print the pictures, just bring pictures up. Do a Google search of images and find set things. Work with the individuals on specific storylines, but also try and bring them back into social learning skills. This is a very good time for us to sit down and kind of reconnect with some of those things that we haven't connected to in a long time. I spoke in another video about the whole idea of things that for an earlier generation may have been common sense is not common sense now because it's no longer common. It's not that it's not sensical, it's no longer common. And so what we want to do is go back in some ways to grassroots. What are those discussions that we can have? Listen to the individual if they're able to communicate with you too about their feelings, their emotions, and if they're not, just talk through stories, share ideas, share what's going on. Those are the ways that socially we connect more strongly, emotionally we connect more strongly. And another thing to realize is that when we connected emotionally to a very strong degree, what we're also doing is keeping those individuals' anxiety levels down. Why? Because they're focused on, again, that whole idea of that bond between people. They're expressing their emotions and using it in a very positive way. So there's a lot of things we can do at home, and therapists, don't be afraid to use the cell phones, use Zoom, use whatever you can to connect with some other individuals. Even if it's standing outside on a cold day, at least maybe have some gloves on and a hat and maybe a cup of coffee. But make sure that we're maintaining what we can do for our individuals with exceptionalities.